What's up, guys? This is Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to give you guys an update about President Trump's tariffs, what's happening so far with our data coming out for tomorrow, and what you should be watching for as time goes on for the charts. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. So as far as the market's going, I just want to mention that SPY has a very interesting trend. The closer we get to about that 650 area, the more we like to reject. So here at 650, we got this rejection. 652, we got a rejection. Now we're trying to push a bit higher. We're bullish, at least for the shorter term, because notice that we were at this low at 635. And by the way, as we hit the mid 630s, we do like to bounce and kind of bounce off that level. So we've been bouncing, making higher lows, and higher lows. So we might try to go a little higher towards the all-time high on SPY. Same thing with the QQQ. We're trying to go higher, higher, low, higher, low, higher, low, higher, low. We could try to go a little bit higher, but be very, very careful the closer we get to all-time highs because the market has been known for rejecting off those levels. Now, heading into tomorrow, we do have some data that's significant that's coming out at 6 o'clock a.m. tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be Tuesday, September 9th, 2025. We have the Business Optimism Index report, which could cause some volatility. Then at 10 o'clock a.m., we have the non-farm payrolls annual revision, which is very important. This is going to give us more insights about the jobs numbers. Will the jobs numbers be overestimated or underestimated? We're going to see what the revision looks like. Keep in mind that the Fed has a dual mandate. They're going to be looking at inflationary numbers, especially since we have a lot of inflationary numbers coming out throughout this week. So on Wednesday, for example, we have PPI data, which is very important. Then we have CPI on September 11th, which is also going to be very important. Are we going to see a big increase in CPI, or are the numbers going to be tame? Will this cause the market to rally or dump? We'll have to see about that, so be very careful. So be ready for a lot of inflationary numbers on Wednesday and Thursday. But for tomorrow, which is going to be Tuesday, we just have some jobs numbers being revised, which is all very important for the Fed. Because of what we saw with non-farm payrolls at least last week, the market continued to rally and rally and rally. There's a lot of buyers who were stepping in. And remember that we have now about a 100% chance the Fed gives us some kind of cuts. There's an 88% chance we get a 25 basis point cut, and about 11.6% chance we get a 50 basis point cut, at least so far. The Fed is now deciding, are they going to give us 25 basis points or 50 basis points? As long as these numbers remain as they are after we get all our inflationary numbers, we will be getting a cut. Most likely there will be a cut coming, and we had Christopher Waller from the Fed come out saying that he expects there to be some kind of cut in September. So most likely there will be some kind of cut coming, but the problem is that we don't truly know exactly to what extent it's going to be because it depends on our labor market and other factors like that. But the problem that we're seeing is that the labor market is beginning to contract a lot more, and the Fed is now in a position where, if things start breaking too fast, the Fed has to play a game of catch up and start cutting rates to kind of like address the problems because they don't want to see high unemployment simultaneously, right? They're trying to avoid a lot of the pain. So this puts the Fed in a very, very critical place, and we're going to see what happens with the non-farm payrolls revision. That will give us more insights about the labor market, which will be affecting our odds of getting a cut and what the Fed anticipates. When it comes to earnings, keep in mind we just have Oracle announcing earnings at least for tomorrow and GameStop, and that's pretty much it. More retail at least throughout the week, but earnings season is coming to an end at least for this cycle. Moving forward, when it comes to what the Fed is doing, like I said before, right now we have different market committee members and different individuals who are now debating between if we're going to get 25 basis points or 50 basis points. Right now, the Fed is anticipating a cut, and this is what's once again making the market feel a bit more optimistic. When it comes to President Trump's tariffs, two federal courts found that many of the emergency tariffs imposed by President Trump are illegal and that they are going to be stopped around October. So that now we have the Supreme Court trying to reverse those decisions. And then our Treasury Secretary came out, Scott Bessent. He is saying that when it comes to the tariffs, half of the money would have to be refunded if the Supreme Court does rule against them. But he is quite confident the Supreme Court is going to support the tariffs based off what we're seeing so far. That's what he claims. President Trump also mentioned that the U.S. has collected tens of billions from the tariffs, and they're going to continue to do very well. And he said that they're going to have to renegotiate policy if the Supreme Court does not rule in their favor. So that's something that President Trump has been talking about. He also threatened higher tariffs on semiconductors, although the details are to be determined. He's been saying that for quite some time. President Trump also mentioned that he thinks that we're doing a great job with trades so far, and he thinks that the tariffs are going to once again benefit Americans. He was going on about that again. And he mentioned that he remains optimistic, at least thus far. So we're going to see what happens with President Trump's tariffs. Will we get some kind of decision from the federal, not the Federal Reserve, sorry, the Supreme Courts, excuse me, guys. And we're going to see what happens for now. As of right now, President Trump and his team remain more optimistic, but we'll see what ends up happening. We're still kind of like waiting on a lot of different things. Besides that, the market's still holding up quite nicely, being led by the Dow Jones and our Nasdaq. So far, we're doing a decent job, at least so far. And we'll see what happens, at least moving forward. So with that being said, let's focus now on the charts. The first thing you'll notice is that for the short term, SPY is doing this. We had this low right here. We bounced, made a higher low. We bounced, made a higher low. We bounced. We're continuing to make higher lows, which is what is favoring us trying to go back up to all-time highs. Now, 650, we got a big rejection. 652, we got a rejection. So I would advise being very, very careful between 650 and 652. So be very, very mindful of that. I'd be very careful, at least around that range. The daily is looking decent on SPY, but it's not as strong as what we saw like last Thursday, last Wednesday, during those days, which still suggests we could be going a bit higher, but we might shuffle a bit. And we're going to be watching to see what happens with our jobs numbers at 10 o'clock a.m. Can that launch us higher or not? Now, I do want to mention that on the weekly, we got a decent looking week. So that does suggest there could be some more upside potential. But when it comes to seasonality, as you know, from what I showed you guys in my previous videos, we tend to be more bearish during the third and fourth week of September. The second week tends to be decent. So we're going to see what happens. Are we about to form a top very soon? Is the market about to start a pullback? It's very possible a pullback could be coming, but I can't turn into a big bear until we start losing structure. So I'd like to see us, for example, break this low at 643, make a lower high, then start dipping. Then yes, you could start to turn more bearish, but we have nothing like that on the chart. As of right now, we're still trying to make higher lows. So the trend is still favoring upside for the time being. So if you're a bear on SPY, okay, you want to see us basically lose 646.5. If we fail there, we could be dipping back down to like 643, and we'll see if we bounce or not. So that's the level you want to see us lose if you want to be bearish. If you're bullish, you want to see us basically hold above 650. If that holds, we're looking for a test of the all-time high, and we're going to see if we make a new all-time high before turning down. Keep in mind that on the RSI and MACD, we have a bearish divergence developing on SPY. We have a triple bearish divergence. That typically signifies some more downside could be coming after we try to push higher. So in my view, I think that the odds are favoring that SPY is going to basically retest 650, consolidate like this, and we might go a little higher towards the all-time high. But once we touch that, if we do go a little bit higher to 650 to 652, I'll be looking to see if we get some kind of rejection or not. There is a possibility we get a rejection off this, just like what we saw previously. And it could be because of these jobs numbers or other factors like that. So be ready for some consolidation. We might go a little higher near 652, but we need to hold above 652 to remain bullish. The last time we touched that, we got a hard rejection last Friday. So be careful. We might push towards the all-time high, and there could be a rejection coming because of what the seasonality trend suggests, and also because we could be in a topping process in general because of the month of September, and that could be a sign that the market's getting ready to form some kind of top. When it comes to the QQQ, the same thing is going on. So notice that we're getting lots of rejections on the triple Q. We touched this level right here around this 576 area, we got a rejection. Then we touched 583, got a rejection. Then we touched 578, rejected. Then we touched 580, rejected. So we do like to reject near 580. It's quite evident so far. Now, we haven't officially rejected. We're going to see how we end up reacting to the low 580s. If you're a bear, if you want to be a bear, you need to see us lose 572. If that fails us, we could be dumping a lot lower. If you're a bull, you need to see us get back above 582 to push higher. My gut tells me that we're making higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, and higher lows. And this might consolidate a little bit and slowly push for like 580 to 582, a little higher. And then we're going to see if we turn back down from there. So I do think we might be going a little bit higher. We could get closer to the all-time high on the QQQ, but the closer we get to 580 to 582, be careful. We could consolidate and turn right back down to 578 or below. For the IWM Russell 2000, we're making higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, and higher lows. So I still think this is looking bullish because when you look at the 4-hour time frame, as I've talked about before, we still have this very, very nice looking inverse head and shoulders on the IWM. And I think that's a very, very good sign, at least thus far. So this does suggest upside is still prominent. We could be going to like 240 to 245 for a little bit more upside, and we'll see what happens at least after that. Now, if you're a bear, you want to see us essentially lose 234. If that fails, we could be retesting this low right here. But as long as you hold above 236, we're going to be looking for an attempt to push for 240 or above. The low 240s could be coming. Then we're going to see if we turn back down from there. So watch to see what happens as we approach 240. I do think we push a bit more for the IWM. Notice that ES is holding up quite nicely, and we have an imbalance to fill around 65.25. Might dip and then start slowly pushing for 65.25 or so. But be careful once we test the all-time high, because we could turn right back down from there, as we're still technically stuck within this rising wedge. So could we go higher? Yes. I still think ES has potential to retest the all-time high. But once we test this, I would be very, very careful. And we're going to see if we get some kind of rejection again. If we make a lower high, that could be a sign we're about to see some kind of like pivots. We're also technically in a range. So as we hit the low 6,500s, notice that ES rejects. As we get the higher 6,300s, almost like around 6,400, we like to bounce. So that could be our range, and there's a chance that we go a little higher only to reject back down like this. You want to be very careful. There is still some upside potential to bounce. Even on NQ, we're making higher lows here, so we're still holding up quite nicely, forming a nice double bottom. So we could be pushing for 23,900. If we lose 23,680, excuse me, we could be turning down. But I think that we're going to be favoring 23,900 to 24,000. Then be careful. We could start to pivot off that. Might be a little bit more upside coming towards almost 24,000. Then we could be rejecting, as we like to do on the NQ chart. For Bitcoin, I think we're holding up very nicely, forming an inverse head and shoulders, but we need to hold above 112,780 to push higher for essentially 114,000. If we lose 111,000, we're going to be turning back down, but I do favor 114,000 as our potential target, so this could be going a little bit higher. For Tesla, we're showing some weakness. Unfortunately, there was some negative headlines about how the U.S. sales are declining, and also there was some weakness that tends to develop at least on this day of the week. So it looks to me like Tesla's going to revisit its EMAs, taking us down to 343 to 340. Then we'll see if Tesla could bounce off 340. I think we dip to 343 to 340, and we'll see if buyers defend. If not, we're going to be dumping a lot lower, but there is still some upside potential to bounce. On Nvda, we're making lower highs right here, so we need to get back above 170. If that breaks, we're looking for 173. But if we end up losing 165, we're turning back down lower. So I do see a test of 165, and we'll see what happens after that. Looking at Appl, we have 237 as support. If that fails, we could be tipping to 235. But if we break past 240, we're looking for a big bounce. So look for a test of 237. We'll see if we bounce or not. Otherwise, there is some downside potential. On Netflix, we have 1237 as our support alongside 1227. I see us dipping to 1237 or so, and we'll see if we bounce or not. So be very careful. MSTR is rejecting off our 20 EMA, so there's going to be a risk of us retesting like 325. The downside risk is there on MSTR. Celsius is on a bit of a downtrend right now. We got a small rejection right here. So this might bounce a bit to like 57, then turn back down as we continue to respect a downtrend. Supermicro is also consolidating. We need to get back above 40.7 to bounce. But if we lose 40 flat, we're turning back down. So I do anticipate 40.7 as resistance and some consolidation in this range as we have some sideways price action going on. Palantir could be retesting 158, and we'll see if we reject or not, but I do anticipate some upside potential for now. Rivian has support around 13.9 for, and we could be bouncing back up to the low 14s. And then SoFi is looking a bit more bullish to me. We're going to be favoring essentially 26.5 as our target. AMD is looking decent. We're actually consolidating. We're going to see if we get back above 155. If we lose 150, we're going to be turning back down, but I need to see us hold 150. If 150 holds on AMD, we could bounce for 155. We're trying to form a base here, but I need to see 150 hold. If it does, we could be looking for a rebound towards 155. If not, we could be turning even lower. On ARM, we could be retesting the support around 137. We'll see if we bounce, but there is some downside potential there. PayPal is going to likely retest 68.72 to 69, and we'll see if there's a rejection. Coinbase is bouncing a bit. It might try to go for 307 to 310, and we'll see if it bounces, or we'll see if it rejects, excuse me. So it could try to reject off there, so look for 307 to 310, and we'll see how it ends up going from there. Right now, Amazon's on an uptrend. Notice it's still making higher lows, and we could be trying to go back up for like 238 to 240. So as long as we don't end up losing 232, we might dip and start pushing for 238 to 240. On Meta, we're going to see if we hold 749 or not. We could touch this and bounce back up towards like 755. And we'll see what happens after that. We have a nice accumulation so far, so we could be looking for 755 to 760. Google might be dipping a little bit back down towards 230, and we'll see what happens after that. Microsoft is trying to bounce back up to about 502, and we'll see what happens as well. There could be a temporary bounce nonetheless. DJT is favoring 17.23, and we'll see if it rejects. There could be some upside potential. The VIX is looking bearish, favoring a move back down to the low 14s. The 10 years dipping, the dollar is dipping, and then we also have crude kind of pushing a bit. I think all of this is favoring that the market's going to go a little higher. SPY might be pushing towards the all-time high. The QQQ might be retesting 580 and 582 for a little bit more upside. So I do think the market does uptrend a bit more. But be very careful once we get these jobs numbers, and simultaneously be careful once we hit the all-time highs and resistance around there, because historically the market does like to reject near those levels. So be very careful the higher we go. I want to give you guys a warning about that. Could we pump more? Yes, the trend is still bullish, but you want to be very, very careful with this resistance. I want to give you guys a heads up about that. So keep that in mind, guys. With that being said, I want to thank you all so much for listening. I hope you guys have a very, very awesome rest of your guys' days. I know I was very busy during the weekend. My videos were kind of like shorter, at least from yesterday and even today. But I'm going to be more active tomorrow. I'm going to put a lot more time into this. I've been very, very busy with some family emergencies and such, but things are, going well. I'm doing very, very well, and I just want to thank you all so much for your kind messages every single day in the comments section. It just means a lot to me, and I once again really appreciate, everyone so much for watching these videos, for all you guys' kind words, and for everything that you guys do. So that being said, I'll be back tomorrow before the market opens. I'll give you guys another update about how things are looking during the pre-markets. And then I do have more announcements coming out for the channel very soon. So I have a lot of exciting things to discuss. Until then, I wish you all nothing but the best. Have a good day, night, or evening, wherever you guys are around the world. I'll be back very, very soon tomorrow after or right before the market ends up opening. Thank you for listening, and peace out.